Most people don't lose their lives all at once. They lose them an hour at a time to things that never mattered. They feel it quietly, a pressure in the chest, a breath they can't quite catch. They're not drowning, but they're not breathing either. They're running, always running, but the finish line keeps moving. And if you ask them why, they'll say something that sounds noble. I'm working hard. I'm doing my best. I'm staying busy. But there's a difference between effort and alignment. There's a difference between movement and meaning. Time doesn't care how hard you work. Time only honors what you build with it. Somewhere inside you, a clock has been ticking. But this clock doesn't measure minutes. It measures purpose. It doesn't care about how many messages you answered, or how many likes your post got, or how full your calendar looks. It only wants to know, did you use your time? Or did time use you? Napoleon Hill warned of the quiet trap that steals the best years of a man's life. Not failure, not hardship, but distraction, drift, chasing goals that don't belong to him, climbing ladders that lead to nowhere, succeeding in the wrong direction. And when you finally realize the truth, it hits like thunder. You were never busy. You were just unavailable to your calling. This isn't a motivational video. This is a reckoning with time, with purpose, with yourself. Because the life you were meant to live is still waiting, buried beneath obligations you never chose, beneath goals that don't fit your soul, beneath a clock you tried to outrun. But the clock is not your enemy. It's not ticking to threaten you. It's ticking to call you back before the seconds you've been given turn into ruins behind you. The question is not whether you're running out of time. You are. We all are. The real question is, will you spend what's left on what matters most? Perfect. Now we step into the first chamber of truth, where time isn't just lost, it's stolen. There's a form of poverty no one talks about. It doesn't show up on a credit report. It doesn't empty your bank account, but it slowly bankrupts your life. It's the poverty of attention, the silent hemorrhage of focus, leaking into 1,000 fragments of nothing. Every notification you check, every task you do just to look productive, every conversation you have just to avoid the one that matters. Every minute you trade for temporary stimulation, you are borrowing from your future self, and that debt comes due. You don't feel it at first. That's the trap. Distraction is comfortable. It disguises itself as freedom. It gives you the illusion of progress without the pain of purpose. But what you're really building is a cage. And the bars are made of your own unused potential. Because every time you choose what is urgent over what is important, you weaken the muscle of discipline. You erode your ability to decide. You stop trusting your own inner compass because you haven't followed it in years. And without direction, without that inner command, you begin to drift. Napoleon Hill called this condition drifting, a spiritual sleepwalking that afflicts the masses. The drifter doesn't look like a failure. He might be busy. He might be earning. He might even be admired. But inside, he is off course. He's moving without moving toward, living without ever truly deciding why. He's like a ship at sea with no captain, swayed by every wind, every current, every storm that passes through his day. And the most dangerous part? He doesn't even realize he's lost. Because the world keeps rewarding his distractions with dopamine. Now pause and really ask yourself, what have I truly chosen to spend my time on this week? Not what fell into your lap. Not what someone else needed. Not what was screaming loudest. But what matters to your long-term vision? What builds the person you're becoming? If you can't answer that clearly, you're drifting, and that is a debt you cannot afford. The great tragedy of wasted time isn't the minutes you'll never get back. It's the version of you that never got built. That version, the focused one, the powerful one, the one who moves with vision and silence, he doesn't just arrive by accident. He's built through a million micro decisions. The kind that say no when it's easier to say yes. The kind that carve out time for solitude, for study, for strategy. And yes, it costs you. Focus will cost you comfort. Discipline will cost you popularity. Alignment will cost you distraction. But drifting will cost you everything. Because here's the truth most people ignore. Your time isn't being stolen. You're giving it away. You give it away every time you scroll through someone else's life instead of designing your own. You give it away every time you say yes out of guilt instead of no out of alignment. You give it away every time you numb yourself with convenience instead of sitting in the fire of purpose. And every time you do, you're writing checks your soul will have to cash. There's a reason ancient wisdom treated time as sacred, not because it was scarce, but because it was irreversible. Money lost can be earned again. Energy spent can be restored. But time only moves in one direction forward. And the decisions you make about it are not just practical, they're spiritual. How you spend your time is how you worship your life. So here's the code most never crack. It's not about doing more. It's about doing less of what doesn't matter, so you can finally do what does. It's not about optimizing your schedule. It's about reclaiming your authority. This is what Hill meant by definiteness of purpose, the unshakable clarity of knowing who you are, what you are building, and what does not belong in your life anymore. You don't drift when you decide. You don't drown when you simplify. And you don't waste time when every hour becomes a vote for the identity you are sculpting. There's a war happening inside of you right now, between the self that wants relief and the self that wants results. Between the self that wants escape and the self that wants evolution. Only one of them wins, and the battlefield is your time. Take a breath. Really, feel the weight of how you've been spending your hours, not with guilt, but with ownership. Because once you see the invisible debt of distraction, you don't get to pretend anymore. You either keep drifting or you start designing. And that choice begins now. All right, we go deeper now, not into time, but into truth, where hard work is exposed for what it often is, a mask for misalignment. There's a pain that doesn't show on the surface. It hides behind productivity, behind achievement, behind the polished answers we give when people ask how we're doing. It sounds like this. I'm working so hard, but it never feels like enough. I'm doing everything right, so why does it feel so wrong? This is the ache of misalignment, when your effort is real, but your direction is off. It's like sprinting full speed in the wrong direction, like pouring your energy into a ladder you didn't choose, only to realize it's leaning against a wall that leads nowhere. You see, not all ambition is noble. Not all goals are yours. Some are inherited. Some are adopted. Some were given to you by a world that profits from your confusion. And when you build your life on borrowed dreams, you will eventually feel it, a quiet nausea in the soul, like something sacred is being traded. But the trade is silent. No alarm goes off when you abandon your purpose. No voice warns you when your values are slowly replaced with validation. It just shows up in the mirror. Look into that mirror, not the physical one, but the inner mirror. The one that reflects your alignment. What do you see? Are you chasing outcomes that match your truth? Or just outcomes that impress others? Are you building your vision? Or have you become a skilled worker on someone else's? Do you feel the clarity of creation or the fatigue of compensation? Read that again. It's about awakening. Because many people waste years of their life doing what they're good at instead of what they're called to. Skill without soul is slavery. Discipline without direction is drudgery. Motion without meaning is misery in disguise. And here's the cruel part. From the outside, it looks like success. The world applauds your hustle. Your numbers are up. Your titles are growing. But your spirit is fading. Napoleon Hill warned us, success without definiteness of purpose is a mirage. It looks like wealth. It looks like power. But it's hollow. Because only aligned success satisfies. Everything else is just noise. You don't want to be rich. You want to be rich in meaning. You want to wake up and know that your actions aren't just efficient, they're true, that your work reflects your essence, that your time reflects your values, that your output is an echo of your soul. Let's bring this into the real. Ask yourself, whose life are you building? Really? Not who you're trying to impress, not what society calls normal, not what your old self decided years ago when fear was louder than vision, but the life that belongs to you, the one that feels like home, the one that clears the fog instead of deepening it. If that life is not where your energy is going, then your effort, no matter how noble, is being wasted on the wrong altar. This is the moment most people avoid because it asks too much. It asks for honesty. It asks for courage. It asks you to put down everything that doesn't belong, even if you've carried it for years. But here's the paradox. You don't lose anything when you let go of misalignment. You recover your power. You reclaim your vision. You return to yourself. There's a mirror in every decision, a reflection in every yes and every no. Each one reveals what matters most to you, not by what you say, but by what you sacrifice. So look again, not with judgment, but with clarity. You are either living your truth or someone else's expectations. You are either building your future or protecting a past that no longer serves you. And if you're feeling drained, not just tired, but drained, it's not because you're lazy. It's because you're misaligned. You can't outrun misalignment. You can't outwork it. You can't outperform it. You can only return to the center, to the core, to the voice inside you that knew, long before the world got noisy, exactly why you were here. That voice is still whispering, and the mirror still waits. Now we bring fire to the altar, not to destroy, but to purify. The roles you never questioned, the obligations you never chose. There's a silent weight you've been carrying, not made of stone, but of agreements. Agreements you never consciously made, but still obey. You say yes when you want to say no. You smile when your spirit wants to withdraw. You perform roles you didn't audition for, because somewhere along the way, you were taught that being valuable meant being available. But here's the truth. Your soul is suffocating beneath your unspoken obligation, and it's time to burn them, not in anger, not in rebellion, but in clarity. Because not every responsibility is yours to carry. Not every expectation deserves to be fulfilled. Not every tradition needs to be honored. Some of the rules you live by were written by people who never knew your name. Some of the routines you repeat are echoes from a life that no longer fits. And some of the sacrifices you've been making were never required. You just never stopped to question them. Napoleon Hill spoke often of definiteness of purpose, but purpose can't live in a body buried beneath false obligation. You cannot serve your vision and your conditioning at the same time. You have to choose. And choosing means clearing the altar, tearing up the contracts you didn't sign, burning the scripts you didn't write, because alignment requires elimination. This is the part most people never do. They add, they stack, they optimize, but they never subtract. They never ask, what am I doing out of guilt, fear, or habit, and not from truth? Read that again, because the life you're building depends on your answer. How many of your days are spent upholding a version of you that no longer exists? How many hours go to people who would never do the same for you? How much of your energy is spent managing perception instead of expanding your soul? This is not just about productivity. It's about permission. The permission to stop playing the role, to let go of being the reliable one, the fixer, the pleaser, the overachiever, the one who has it all together. Because behind all that performance is a self that's been waiting to be seen. Burning false obligations doesn't mean abandoning responsibility. It means choosing real responsibility to your truth, your vision, your life's work. And to do that, you must develop a sacred skill, the skill of saying no. No to what drains you. No to what distracts you. No to what disguises itself as opportunity, but feels like a cage. Hill wrote that all men must choose between two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. This is the third, the pain of honesty, of telling the world and yourself what no longer fits, and then setting it on fire. Picture it, a fire in the center of your life, not chaotic, not wild, but controlled. Focus, sacred, into it. You throw every outdated belief, every unspoken expectation, every ghost of who you thought you had to be. Watch it burn. Watch what doesn't belong turn to ash. Watch the space it creates for truth to return. This is the ritual of self-return. This is what most never do. And when the fire dies down, you will notice something. Clarity. Clarity does not scream. It whispers in the space that guilt once filled. It arrives in the silence after obligation dies. And in that silence, you remember, you are not here to please. You are here to build. You are not here to perform. You are here to align. You cannot hold your vision in one hand and your false obligations in the other. One must be released. And you already know which one it is. This is not about becoming ruthless with others. It's about becoming ruthlessly honest with yourself. What belongs, what does not, and what must now be burned. Because every hour you spend living a script that isn't yours is an hour you'll never get back. And time is not waiting for you to choose. We now enter the fog. Not the chaos of crisis, but something far more dangerous, the quiet, creeping numbness of a life unchosen. Not every prison has bars. Some are made of comfort, of routines that never hurt you, but never grew you, of decisions you never made, but still obey. This is the fog, the soft, silent killer of purpose. It doesn't arrive like a storm. It arrives like a suggestion. You have time. There's no rush. Stay where it's safe. And without noticing, you begin to delay your life, not because you lack desire, but because you've lost direction. There's a difference between being still and being stuck. And the most dangerous place you can live is the space in between. You wake up, not with fear, but with fog. A vague sense that something is missing, but not enough pain to change. So you go through the motions. You check the boxes. You do the work. But underneath it all, you stop choosing. Napoleon Hill warned us about this state. He called it drifting, a condition more fatal than failure, because at least failure is an end. Drifting just stretches the in-between forever. The drifter avoids decision. He waits for clarity to come from outside. He avoids the mirror. He keeps himself busy, not to advance, but to avoid. The price is steep. Because every day you delay your path, someone else makes use of your potential. There is a sound you begin to forget when you drift too long. It's the sound of your own name, spoken by your future self. The self that knows exactly why you came here. The one who remembers what you once dreamed before the world convinced you to shrink. When you stop choosing, that voice fades, and the fog gets thicker. Here's the paradox. People don't stay stuck because they don't want more. They stay stuck because they fear losing what little they have, even if it's not enough. So they delay the move, delay the book, delay the business, delay the conversation, delay the decision. And in that delay, life drains. Ask yourself, what have I been postponing? Not because it isn't right, but because I'm waiting for permission. What am I avoiding? Not because it's wrong, but because it terrifies me to change. Indecision is not a pause, it's a leak. A slow, steady leak in the roof of your destiny. And the longer you wait to repair it, the more the foundation below you begins to rot. This fog isn't passive. It's predatory. It feeds on your hesitation. It grows in your silence. It numbs your urgency until someday becomes your tombstone. And the worst part, you won't even realize what you lost until you look back. And by then, the road is gone. But it's not too late. Not yet, because fog is not permanent. It just needs light. One decision. One direction. One sentence spoken out loud. This is where I go. That's all it takes to cut through the blur, to part the gray with fire. Because clarity doesn't wait for you to be ready. It arrives when you decide. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to move toward the truth, even slowly, even imperfectly. Because forward is a direction, and chosen is a frequency. And the moment you choose again, you remember your name. Now the air clears. The fog recedes, and standing before you is the blank ground of your true life. It's time to build. This is where we meet the architect, the version of you that doesn't drift, doesn't doubt, and doesn't delay. When the fog lifts, most people panic, not because they're lost, but because they can finally see the truth. There is no map, only blueprints that must be drawn, plans that must be forged, structures that must be chosen. And that is where the architect rises. You've met this version of yourself before, briefly, in those rare hours when clarity hits like lightning, when everything in you says, this is it, this is what I'm meant to do. But then, the world pulls you back, into the noise, into the duties, into the comfort of not deciding. Because becoming the architect requires something most people will never give: ruthless focus. Focus is not just attention. Focus is a decision made sacred. It is the ability to say no, not because you're cold, but because you are called. The architect doesn't react. He designs. He doesn't just move through the day. He carves it like stone. Every hour, a brick. Every action, a beam. He knows what is not aligned with the vision does not enter the blueprint. Napoleon Hill called this definiteness of purpose. It is not a nice to have. It is the foundation of greatness. Without it, your time becomes a canvas for other people's chaos. But with it, your time becomes a temple. That's why the architect is ruthless, not cruel, clear, because he knows the cost of entertaining what doesn't belong. He's felt the weight of wasted effort. He's walked through the ruins of misaligned years. He's tasted the fog of delay, and he refuses to return. You must become this version of yourself, not later, now, because clarity without action is just another form of drift. And ideas without structure are just dreams with no backbone. So ask yourself, what will my life look like when it's fully aligned, not just in theory, in time, in space, in practice? Where will my focus go in the first hour of the day? What does my calendar reflect? Fear or vision? Who gets access to my energy? What no longer qualifies for my time? These questions are not luxuries. They are requirements. The architect builds by principle, not pressure, not performance, but principle. He chooses his pillars: health, mastery, mission, solitude, legacy, and he guards them like sacred land. He knows, if I don't protect it, the world will pave it over. This is where discipline stops being a burden and becomes devotion. Because what the world calls discipline, the architect calls freedom. Waking early isn't a punishment. It's a reclaiming. Saying no isn't rejection. It's refinement. Doing deep work isn't isolation. It's creation. He doesn't chase balance. He builds rhythm. Not every day is perfect, but every day has presence. And in presence, power returns. There will be sacrifice. Let's not pretend otherwise. You will lose things: comfort, distraction, approval. The right to say, I didn't have time, but what you gain is everything. The ability to look at your life and see yourself in it. Not just your face, not just your effort, but your design, the life you built on purpose. This is your inheritance. To become the architect of your time, the sculptor of your energy, the keeper of your own direction. But no one will give you permission. No one will crown you. You must step into it now, today, before the world tries to pull you back again. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are just unfinished, but the tools have always been in your hand. The vision has always lived behind your ribs. And the moment you stop waiting, you start building, brick by brick, hour by hour. Align, focus, true. Now we arrive at the final chamber. Not the end, but the return to what matters most. Let's stop pretending. You don't have unlimited time. You never did. No one does. Every breath you take is borrowed. Every morning you wake up is a gift, not a guarantee. And one day, without warning, the clock will stop ticking. Not because you failed, not because you were weak, but because you were human. This truth, this silent, sacred truth, is not meant to scare you. It's meant to set you free. Because when you finally accept that your time is finite, your clarity becomes infinite, the noise falls away, the fake urgency fades, and only the essential remains. You stop asking, what should I do today? And you start asking, what will I leave behind when I'm gone? Most people live like they'll live forever. They postpone the book, the move, the moment, the truth. They wait for the right time, for clarity, for someone else to tell them it's okay. But time doesn't wait. And the life you were meant to live is not waiting either. It's calling, now, from the ruins, from the silence, from the edge of your becoming. The question isn't, how much time do I have left? The question is, what will I do with the time that remains? Because the future doesn't belong to those who hope. It belongs to those who honor time, not by rushing, but by remembering. Remembering that your life is not measured in years, but in meaning, in moments where you showed up fully, in days where you moved with purpose, in hours that were spent building something that will outlive you. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need more time. You need presence. You need intention. You need to look at your life and say, this matters, this doesn't. And I will no longer give my soul to what steals my legacy. So take one last breath right here. Feel the truth settle in your chest. You are running out of time. And that is a gift because it forces you to decide what stays, what goes, and what must begin today, not tomorrow, not when it's easy, now. You don't need another permission slip. You don't need another 5-year plan. You need a vow, a sacred vow to yourself, that your time is not for sale, that your energy is not up for auction, that your hours will be spent on what aligns with the reason you were born, that every day will now be a brick, and you are the builder. This is not motivation. This is memory of who you are, of what you came here to do, and of the cost of delay. So choose, build, begin again, because your time is running out, and that's what makes it holy. You've carried the code all along. Now you have the key, use it.